Good evening. Welcome to Callan's Table Content for the first time as a live stream. Woohoo! For those of you who are tuning in the news why it says episode 5 instead of episode 1, for the past 4 weeks, or rather 5 weeks, I've done this episode. I've been doing episodes exclusively through Anchor and Spotify. If I try something new today, do the live stream because I haven't done that since um, mid to 2021. So now we got that going. Again, my name is Callan. I would like to welcome you guys to Table of Content or Callan's Table of Content. For those of you who are wanting to know what the show is, Callan's Table Content is basically a show where me and my friends all get together and discuss what's happening in the world of content creation. Specifically, talking about all kinds of different forms of media that can be considered content. For example, me and Mr. TaZeTheGod over here, we talked about the whole DC Warner Brothers fiasco in our first episode. In another episode, I talked to another friend of mine named Mac Advertisement about the whole fall of Rooster Teeth. And a few weeks ago, I talked to a Twitch VR streamer named Pig on PC in 4K about benefits and the hindrances or consequences rather of virtual reality streaming. So a couple weeks ago we did an episode, Taze and Lan. We did an episode together where we did where we talked about superhero films and how much of an impact they have on society. And I thought I'd bring these two lovely gentlemen back so we can discuss something else that is kind of close to I think all three of our hearts, with the idea of how how impactful the idea of toys has had um, on media and film and television industries. So I'm gonna allow my two uh, my two friends to come in here and introduce themselves.
I guess I'll go first. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Lan626. I play games on Twitch and will hopefully get my YouTube back in order again. I also do voice acting and other things on the side. And
Hold on one moment, guys. We may have to start all of that over. I mean, the stream is
oh jeez, don't
they
tell
can
me.
hear us on they can hear us on stream. I just haven't added Craig in here, so
Okay. So do you want me to go
Now
first again?
recording.
There we go.
hold on. All right, let me get stream back up on my screen. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Callan. I am the host of Callan's Table of Contents, and I would like to welcome you to the show. I am joined today by Mr. Lan626 and Mr. TaZeTheGod, aka Tristan Chambers. And today we're going to be discussing the impact of toys on the entertainment and media, film, television industries as a whole. I would like to invite my special guests to introduce themselves to our audience, because we are both streaming this episode live on YouTube as well as recording it for release later this week. So, Mr. Lan626, would you like to introduce everyone or introduce yourself while I advertise the stream? Good talk.
Do you want me to go ahead then?
Yeah, might as well. Ladies and gentlemen, TaZeTheGod, take it away.
Hey everyone, my name is Tristan. I'm a content creator, startup founder, owner of a professional esports team, also startup investor, and also do some other things here and there in the media world. So
he knows a lot about all kinds of shit, and he's basically my go-to if I have a question about anything within the industry. He's really smart. He knows what the hell he's talking about. So, thank you. Thank you for joining the show, Taze.
I appreciate the kind words. It's not so much that it's partially smart, and I just overwhelmingly like absorb knowledge. That's the other part.
Oh, is it my turn now?
Yes, it is. Jesus Christ.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Lan626. I stream on Twitch, fun games and whatnot, just relaxing. I already forgot what my previous intro was, so I got to come up with a new one. I do voice acting on the side, and Callan knows this, but I am a collector of things called. Anyways,
I love how you
wonderful-
cut out right when you were saying it.
Oh no! I intentionally put that pause in myself. That was me actually going and stop the talking. But
okay, give me one moment, guys. I'm still advertising stream real quick.
Take your time. I'm good.
Professional streamers, everyone.
Exactly. But
I always tweet out a stream 5 minutes before I go live.
Oh, I do it exactly.
Yeah, well, 5 minutes before. Well, 5 minutes before I went live, I had to deal with a Discord issue.
Well, I understand that.
But yeah, I am a little bit excited for this topic because this is something that I grew up with, and a lot of people grew up with, and it kind of shaped certain things, and I'm really stoked.
Oh,
because I have a lot of information about this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly excited for this because, like, I grew up watching a lot of movies and things like that were influenced because of toys, and so
movies, TV shows, comic books, definitely an entire range of media.
I'm gonna be honest,
shaped mostly by
comic books
toys.
until, like, 2 years ago.
See, I didn't have a massive collection of comics, but I used to go to like my local library, random bookstores, and instead of going and purchasing most of the books, I'd rent from libraries, or I'd go and bookstores like Barnes and Nobles. I'd go and I'd sit there for hours on end, just reading different comics, and that's another thing that got me more into certain toys and figures and whatnot growing up.
No, see, I only have 3 comic books in my entire collection.
I only have 1, and I think you know exactly which comic I have, Taze.
I don't. You probably told me.
It's the Prox Transmissions. That's the only one that I have in my collection.
I think my current collection, I have at least 15 different comics.
So
I got one entire series.
The ones that I have, one, I'm trying to think. One is the first volume of Marvel's Runaways. One is of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and then the other one, I'm forgetting what the other one is.
You know, I need to stop real quick because I do actually have a second comic, and that comic is the full-length graphic novel of Watchmen, because I've always loved that comic. It's such a great... It is one of the few graphic novels that is included on, I think, Time's 100 greatest novels of all time.
Yeah.
Did you know... I hate to interrupt you with that, but did you know about the whole DC thing about the Button storyline?
No, what?
Yeah, the Button.
What the hell is the Button?
I'm gonna go ahead and just do a brief thing on it. So basically, during some event, which it's been a while since I've read it and listened to people talk about it online. Someone from the DC Comics winds up finding a smiley face button with a blood stain on it. Exactly.
Are you talking about Doomsday Clock?
Yes, the Doomsday Clock. The whole entire
Okay, yeah.
storyline. The whole entire storyline. Most people call it the button because of
Why?
the whole.
Because
Because it,
catching and ominous.
as well as
The button.
you know,
Sounds like,
Would it be as much lore and intrigue to it if we just called it, the smiley buttonator? No.
No.
You
We
can call
call
it the Doomsday Clock. It's called the Doomsday Clock, but people call it the button storyline because of the fact that the button from whoever, I believe it's the comedian, he has that button on it. They go and they find that, and they have the whole thing going on, trying to figure out what the hell it's from and everything, and then they
Didn't
learn
they have
about
Didn't they have a whole battle between like Superman and Dr. Manhattan in one of those comics?
I think briefly, but they kind of didn't go and do anything too much with it.
On track here.
Yes. I do apologize.
Hey, this is
about
my
that.
show. This is my show, guys. Why are you taking my show away from me? What the hell? All right,
As I said, you're the host. We're the vocal cords that bring life to the show.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So again, we got a little bit off topic. If you want to hear a little bit more of us talking about comics and superheroes, you can go check out episode 4, which is currently on Spotify and Anchor. The link will be in the description, hopefully after this, and it'll be on the Twitter accounts, so you can always go look on there. Today's episode, we are going to be talking about how our childhood toys influenced us, and how toys themselves have influenced entertainment media. And in order to start this conversation off, because it's a topic that I think all three of us have a emotional connection to at some point in our lives, when it comes to talking about toys and relative to entertainment media, the first thing that pops up in my mind is Transformers. And well, actually, first two things that pop in my mind are Transformers and Power Rangers. So
I was going to say, you almost forgot about the other top toy seller there.
both of which are owned by Hasbro. So and are releasing.
Owns everything.
Well,
not really.
Not everything, but
They own Power Rangers,
Hasbro,
they own Transformers, they own G.I. Joe.
For a while there, they didn't have
True.
Power Rangers, and it was a different toy company that had it. But
same with Star Wars. Hasbro is probably
bought it.
Hasbro's probably the second biggest toy store out there, only following I think Lego for the. Case, I think you can look this up for us, but if you ask me, I think the standings are Lego at the top of the pyramid scheme, and then you have Hasbro right underneath them with all their product deals. So you got like Nerf, My Little Pony, Transformers, G.I. Joe, Star Wars, because apparently Kenner went under.
Just gotta go and drop this out there as well before we forget about that. Mattel with majority of the board games.
Right. Mattel has a lot of board games. I mean, not to say Hasbro doesn't either, but Mattel has, Mattel, Tonka, Hot Wheels, I think.
Yep.
There are a lot. There are decent toy companies out there. So go ahead, Chase.
I don't know, if Hasbro is more. So Lego has 3 times more employees. It is the world's largest toy company. I don't know what that necessarily means. Okay, yeah. So Lego is, as of 2015, Lego is more profitable than Mattel and Hasbro combined.
Because they have to have so many people to help come up and create different Lego lines and
Well, I think it's
Well,
also
that's the thing. That's the thing.
things.
Lego is based out of Denmark and is more of a worldwide organization, while Hasbro is limited to
Mhm.
basically the United States with exports
In the
to
UK.
the in the UK
Not
as well as Europe in general. But most of their international sales are through their Japanese counterpart, Takara Tomy,
yeah.
which is kind of where we get back on topic because Takara Tomy was the toy company in Japan that inspired the whole Transformers craze. Because it actually, here's the funny thing:
Mhm.
the history of Transformers can actually be traced all the way back to G.I. Joe. Because in, I think, the late 50s, Hasbro released the original G.I. Joe doll as a competitor to Mattel's Barbie,
Mhm.
but for boys.
Mhm.
That original doll made its way over to Japan. Takara Tomy purchased the licensing for that, and when they did, they eventually started doing like a cyborg version of it, of that specific doll model, which eventually led to like the Micronauts, which led to Diaclone, which is what inspired Hasbro to purchase the Diaclone and Micromaster toys
Mhm.
and bring them over to American audiences in mid to late 1983. But but that's where all of this begins because in early 1984, Hasbro worked with Marvel Comics. This is the first instance, I think, of a franchise as big as Transformers, leaping from the physical realm of the toys into the entertainment media realm, where they went over to Marvel Comics, where Marvel writers like Bob Budiansky worked on creating stories and creating the characters. He's the guy behind Optimus Prime. He's the guy behind I'm sorry, I mean Starscream. Um,
He's the
How do
guy.
you
He's
mix
the guy
that?
behind a lot of
mhm.
the Transformers.
Yeah, Bob
Uh,
Budiansky is like the original. He's the guy who initially created the backstories of most of the original Transformers. And
Basically, almost like
then
the grandfather, if you really
mhm,
get into it.
Yeah.
he's the godfather of Transformers, essentially. So with that history lesson continued, the first time American audiences saw Transformers on a television screen in any animated fashion was a commercial in late spring of 1984 when Hasbro released a commercial that advertised the first issue of the four-issue limited series of the Transformers in Marvel Comics. But when that series started releasing, it gained so much popularity that on September 17th, 1984, Hasbro premiered the first part of the three-part season premiere of the Transformers, which launched this entire franchise as a whole. And because of the popularity of the show and all the toys, we suddenly got we went from a four-issue limited series into a full-blown franchise of comics, all released from Marvel between the years of 1983 and 2000. And that's how long they owned the license. So,
And
uh,
just a little side note:
mhm.
if it wasn't for the commercials and the comics, as well as the toys looking as good as they were and everything like that, we probably would not have Transformers as a massive hit because of the kids. If the kids at the time didn't
Oh, but
enjoy
here's the thing.
any of those,
Here's the thing, though. They had competition
oh, they did,
because when
of course.
they brought Transformers over, Transformers wasn't the first transforming toy in American markets. It was
Nope.
actually the GoBots created by Tonka.
Yep.
But no one really talks about the GoBots because, I mean, the show and the characters kind of
To a lot of
faded.
people, the GoBots at the time was good,
Mm-hmm.
but as soon as Transformers came out and how good the Transformers looked
Mm-hmm.
and the story behind all the Transformers, they jumped ship
Mm-hmm.
from the GoBots to Transformers, which is why Transformers is a lot more popular than the GoBots were, which is why they started losing sales on that.
It started losing sales also because when GoBots was around, Tonka didn't really believe in it. They just saw it as a line of figures that they could do to kind of gain a little popularity. Because if you think Tonka, the first thing that you think of is the little construction toys that you played with as a kid. And I guess they tried to branch out from that, and I
They
mean,
wanted to switch from just the simple, oh, you can put like actual, you can use this toy to go and dig actual dirt and put it into the back of this toy and move it around and actually pretend that you're actually being a construction worker, to, hey, we need to go and try to revamp our thing to kind of give them more than just simple, oh, hey, I can pretend to be a construction worker, which is why
right.
the GoBots were a thing. They wanted to give more imagination to the kids.
But unfortunately, the franchise of GoBots started falling out. They did have an animated cartoon, but it just kind of faded into obscurity, and then Hasbro purchased the rights to the characters and basically have done nothing with them since. So, like, except for like a couple of references here and there. For example, in the GoBots cartoon, the leader of the good guys, I can't remember their faction title. His name is Leader One. The character itself of Leader One didn't appear until the IDW Transformers comics in the mid 2000s, but the name Leader One was used in the Transformers Armada cartoon, which premiered in 2002, which was actually my gateway drug into the Transformers franchise as a whole. So, bring it all around full circle.
Pretty much. For me, when it came to Transformers, I had the reruns of the original from G1, as well as a couple of the G2 scenes and whatnot. I had a couple episodes from the G2, but not as many as the G1, because G1 was a lot more popular. So they used the original animation when the certain channels had it. I don't remember the specific channel company that did it, but I do remember going and seeing shows like the original G1 Transformers, a couple things of He-Man, a couple things of original Thundercats, as well as G.I. Joe, and, classic shows. So I was technically introduced back then with the reruns, but my main show during my lifetime when I was born was the Transformers Beast Wars line.
Right.
That was the main show that I used to watch when I was younger.
That came out in the early to mid 90s, and was a direct sequel to what many fans consider call Generation 1 of Transformers, or G1 for short. And we'll get a little bit more into why I personally hate G1 now more than ever, but we'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, so Transformers has been one interesting franchise, to say the least, over the years. And it pretty much culminated in 2007 when Michael Bay and Steven Spielberg got together to create the live-action film Transformers, which, surprisingly enough, is not the first Transformers animated film to ever release in theaters. That distinction goes back to 1980. Six's The Transformers the movie, which
It was the first action one, though.
It was the first live action one, but it's also but when talking to Transformers fans, when you take a first movie, you have to make that distinction because the original movie is considered a cult classic among Transformers fans nowadays because of all the references in the film, because of just how brutal the film was compared to the original cartoon. Like, I would almost argue that the G1 film is more brutal than anything that we've seen Michael Bay's Optimus Prime do. And that's saying something because a lot of people are saying that Optimus Prime and the modern Transformers films is a murderous
bloodthirsty
psychopath.
killer, basically.
Yes. It was so bad that you saw so many of your
favorite Transformers, Autobots, Decepticons, just any of them in the movies, they get killed in the most gruesome and brutalist ways in the Michael Bay film. But going back and looking at the 86 movie, which I've done a couple times, especially with Callan.
Yeah, we actually went to go see it in theaters for its 35th anniversary?
I believe it was the 35th anniversary.
Yeah, we went to go see it in
back,
theaters for the 35th.
Looking back at that and looking at the stuff that Michael Bay has put out for Transformers, it's not. It's kind of light night and day, where the night side is Michael Bay's Transformers, where it's live action and yes, it's gruesome, but you still have the exact same stuff in the 86 film, but worse.
But here's the thing with the 86 film. There's an important distinction we should mention, and it actually ties in to the overall topic that we're discussing on today's episode, and that is the reason why so many of the characters were killed. It was because Hasbro, after 2 years of selling the same toys, decided that they wanted to kill off these characters to advertise other toys, newer toys.
They wanted to go and create the next wave, and since sales of certain figures were not doing very well anymore, they were going and killing them off this grand movie to go and promote, hey, you got this new Autobot, this new Decepticon, this new character, and that new character who are supposed to replace those toys of yours. So even though you love how they were in the show, they're not doing
they
well
are no longer around.
We're not reaching our numbers, so we need to get rid of them and introduce you guys to these new things. That way you can have better figures, make your collection bigger.
It's also important to mention that Hasbro had no idea essentially how popular their characters were, because after the release of the 1984 film, I guess spoilers for a film that's 86 film. Thank you.
Yeah.
I guess spoilers for the 35th for a 35-year-old film. They killed off Optimus Prime damn near within the first 30 minutes of the film, and that eventually led to a lot of backlash, which eventually itself led to the cancellation of the Transformers Generation 1 cartoon in 1987. So.
Yeah.
It shows how influential certain characters can be. For example, Starscream was a very popular character with the children of the time. So was Optimus. Megatron, not so much. I do want to say before we move on is that this film is star-studded with a whole bunch of actors and actresses that you probably have heard of. It was the final role for Academy Award winning director and actor Orson Welles, who you may know from like Citizen Kane or the old classic radio show War of the Worlds. It was a role that Judd. It was a movie that had Judd Nelson portraying the hero Rodimus Prime, or Hot Rod. Judd Nelson, who you may recognize from the Breakfast Club. It had Leonard Nimoy, the the portrayer of Captain, no, not Captain, of Spock from the Star Trek series, from just Star Trek as a whole. Leonard Nimoy was voicing the main villain of Galvatron, one of the main antagonists, and it has a Star Trek cast that I think that a lot of people, if you go back and watch this movie, and if you're a big fan of like the 80s, you will love it. The soundtrack is amazing. This film is so good, but it is so forgotten by anyone who isn't a Transformers fan. And that kind of sucks. But then again, time moves on. You gotta get new toys out there, man.
Mm-hmm.
So, I should also mention Hasbro killed off Optimus not once, not twice, but 3 times in the show. I think twice in the comics.
Yep.
And this is all in Generation 1. So they really did not give 2 shits about Optimus.
They didn't care, but the fans wanted more. And one thing that I've learned over the years, the whole reason why Optimus came back was because of the fact that kids were going and just having the worst ever time of their lives after going and seeing that film, watching their favorite leader, who was like kind of like a pseudo father friend figure, who
all the credit of Peter Cullen. All the credit of Peter Cullen, because
the greatest voice actor with that guy. Love his portrayal.
Peter Cullen. Peter Cullen is up there with Kevin Conroy, may he rest in peace, as one of the greatest voices of a childhood hero character from the cartoons. Kevin Conroy, as many know, was the voice of the Batman.
Bruce Wayne, the Batman.
Bruce Wayne, the Batman, and Batman the Animated Series, like Batman Beyond, the Batman Arkham games. He was just the voice of Batman in so many different mediums, and he was well loved by the fans, and we will miss him going forward. But yeah,
Talon,
Peter Cullen. Go ahead.
I do apologize. I would like to go and move on to the Batman, the animated series figures, if you wouldn't mind coming up after this next little part.
Again, we had initially decided to spend this entire episode talking about Transformers, but honestly, I decided to change the topic to the impact of toys, because I just think that's an interesting topic to see how far toys have, how much toys have impacted the film and entertainment industry.
Exactly.
The influence of the Transformer toys on the media. Even today, almost 40 years after the first Transformer toys were released in dollar stores in the United States, there are amazing figures that are still being sold. I have an entire desk that are filled with the toys. I know Lan has some as well, and they're amazing toys, and I'm very happy to say that I'm still in love with the figures, and I'm still happy to continue collecting them. I'm sure Lan can say the same. Taze, you've been awfully quiet. You got anything you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I have no love lost to Michael Bay after the last couple of Transformers movies.
We'll agree to disagree with those, because I enjoy them anyway, even though I will straight up say that those last 2 Transform films were absolute hot garbage.
It's not really as much of Michael Bay as it more as Mark Wahlberg. I need to be more specific.
Oh right, yeah, he has a hate boner for Mark Wahlberg.
Well, you know, it's like, out of all the people that you
he doesn't even deny it.
Okay, out of all the people that you could have picked to keep the Transformers franchise going, revitalized everything, is a dude in his 40s who's known for comedy. You know, like,
I mean, the film. I mean, in a way, the
thing I
films
remember
were
seeing
held for
Mark
comedy.
Wahlberg in that I probably actually liked were the Ted movies. You know, I think Transformers as a franchise, both toys, animated, live action, I think it has its special place in history, and it always will have its place in pop culture.
Oh, it's definitely going to have it. I
And
mean,
as long
we've been.
as Hasbro makes money off of Transformers, it's going to continue for who knows how many generations.
Obviously.
Oh, it will. We'll be in our 50s, and we'll be collecting. I'll go transforming Optimus Primes.
I think though.
It'll be 60 years later, and they will still be milking Generation 1, which oh my god. Before we move on, I'll let Taze finish what he's saying, but I want to express my vitriolic hatred of Generation 1 as a Transformers collector. So, Taze, go ahead and finish what your thought was, and then I can go on my rant.
For me though, my entrance.
Make it a short one though.
No.
Both of you, quiet.
Wait, you're telling me to be quiet on my own show? What the hell?
For me, my exposure to Transformers was through the movies, and it always will be that way. Well, no, I might have watched one of the animated movies when they came out on DVD, but like Transformers to me, the movies were my exposure to it. I hope that they bring it back with that same like intensity that they used to have. I mean, like, there's so many great characters that they could build and utilize. Live action, I mean, to leave The Last Night on a cliffhanger.
They say that they're going to make a sequel to The Last Night, but I don't know if that's actually going to happen now.
I hope,
but
no, it's probably not.
Do because, like, here's the thing: to bring Quintessa in,
and Unicron,
and then not do anything with it, and then be like, "Oh, we're doing Bumblebee. Now we're doing Rise of the Beast." It's like you had this great storyline right here in the palm of your hands. Do not fumble this. Now, I think also what they need to do is just get rid of Mark Wahlberg. They need to bring in, like, some like younger actors. I mean, shit.
Which they are.
Take actors from like the CW for fuck's sake, and be like, look, we're gonna put you in a movie, right?
I want to point out that the last time they did that was Giving them out, and that was in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows, and that movie bombed. And they did not use Giving them out very well.
Okay.
I kind of like parts of that, but I'm not going to say
okay.
I'm not going to say I loved it, but I did like what they did say.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles since the toys came.
We will talk about it, but we're getting off topic here.
Okay, good. Because
we'll talk about. Okay. If you guys want to bring up anything that has any standing within the toy industry, I want to bring it up because it's cool. We may actually end up doing like a 2-part episode, but still, that's cool. Alright, okay, finish your thoughts so I can go in my rant and we can move on.
I would just say that I have a lot more expansive knowledge with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles lore and the movies and the characters than I do with the Transformers. Though I do know a lot of, like, I think out of most of the people in my circles, even when I was growing up, and like, I probably knew like all the ARGs, the Transformers, all the live action stuff, all the secrets. I remember going to the Hoover Dam actually, and I made a joke to the tour guide. I was like, "So this is where y'all keep Megatron, huh?"
What'd he say?
He's like, we can't comment on that.
Smart dude.
Megatron's still there. Quick. Go to the Hoover Dam.
5+ years ago.
If Megatron's still there, so is the old Spark.
Well, I just looked at it and I was like, so there's that loading dock all the way down there. I was like, what the fuck is going on down there?
I think we can all agree that the first Transformers movie that Michael Bay did was actually really good. I mean,
It was
yes,
basically
it
a
had its
masterpiece.
faults, but
I think
Compared to
if you want to compare, if you want to say it's a masterpiece, I would say it's probably like the movie masterpiece toys in comparison to the normal masterpiece. It looks good from the front, but it doesn't look very good from the back. Because back lives matter.
Okay. Now my last and final thing I will say, and this has to do with Michael Bay. Before we move on, okay?
Go ahead.
I do resent him for being a piece of shit towards Megan Fox.
That's a situation I don't know if I want to get into.
No. We're not going to get heavy into that. I do have to say, though, that... a lot
of things said on both sides. I just think for someone of his nature, like, I don't agree with the things Megan Fox said, but also, let's be fair, Michael Bay can kind of sometimes be... am I allowed to swear?
Yes,
I mean,
you
I
are.
dropped the F-bomb earlier.
Let's be fair. Even though Michael Bay is one of the most successful film producers of all time, he is an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
he is the embodiment of He is the embodiment of Hollywood's asshole.
The only reason
he is literally a douche.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And now I give him credit for reconciling with Megan Fox later and bringing her into the Ninja Turtles franchise. But as far as I know it wasn't his decision to get her kicked off Transformers, but I still think he could have went to bat for her. So that's my final thoughts.
Alright,
get your rant over with. Make it quick.
My show. So, if you're a big Transformers fan like me and Lan, well, actually, Lan, I hate to say this, I don't see you as big of a Transformers fan as I am. I mean, you're big into the franchise, you're a collector as well, but you haven't been as, I guess, obsessed with the franchise as I have been since 2003.
I do have to point out, yes. I do have to point out, yes, I'm not that massive big of a fan because there have been stuff that I have sat out on because to me, at that point in time, for some of the stuff that you've gone and watched, I've watched parts of it and I absolutely did not care to continue watching it, which is why I'm not considered as a massive fan for that generation. I am a massive fan of the earlier parts and part of the movie, as well as the later part of the Aligned continuity.
Which is completely understandable, and I completely agree with it. However, I cannot stand by and continue to support this G1 Oasis that has come out. So, since early 2010, like 2009, 2010-ish, Hasbro has dived deep into redoing a lot of their Transformers content, where a lot of the toys and the games and whatever and the movies have been very focused on a Generation 1 aesthetic. Because so many fans vocalize their absolute vitriolic hatred towards any media that did not depict the Transformers as their precious baby Optimus Prime, who was a trucker and a father figure and all that. Don't get me wrong, I understand all that, but the problem is that this love for Generation 1 has gotten to the point where it is now interfering with the people who grew up watching stuff that wasn't Generation 1. For example, as much as I love the Beast Wars continuity, And as excited as I am for Transformers: Rise of the Beast, which comes out next June, June, I believe. I can't wait to see like Ron Perlman voice Optimus Primal in that movie. I grew up watching Transformers Armada, which premiered in 2002. From 2002 until 2014-ish, Transformers had a very non-Generation 1 aesthetic, almost, where you had new stories, you had new characters being introduced, you had it was Transformers Armada was considered like one of the first reboots of the entire franchise, where it took some of the same characters and gave them a new spin on life. For example, in Generation 1, Starscream was a cowardice sycophant who would betray Megatron at every turn and was essentially the Decepticon comic relief. Like, each episode you want to know, okay, so how's Starscream gonna screw this up for Megatron now? But in Transformers Armada, they made Starscream a very competent soldier, where he was where he was trying to take over the Decepticons to prove his worth to Megatron. I swear, Armada is one of the greatest Transformers stories of all time, but no one remembers it because of this G1 renaissance. Because is after Transformers Prime finished airing, suddenly everything moved over to a where we want all the characters to resemble their Generation 1 selves, and it's just been the toys. I mean, I have 3 toys on my desk currently right now that are characters that are made to resemble their Generation 1 counterparts. Generation 1, great show, great characters, great Transformers. But move the hell on. I want my Optimus Prime that can turn into a flying super moke with 2 gigantic Gundam-style cannons on his shoulders. I want to see Hotshot and Red Alert come back and be main characters again. I want to see... I just want to see... Which is why I'm very happy for this new Legacy toy line, because of they're starting to trickle in more of the classic toys, because this year it marks the 20th anniversary of Transformers Armada, which is something I'm very happy for. But it's just, Generation 1 has been one... If you... Okay, so the way I can compare it, Linkin Park. I got into Linkin Park in 2007 because of the first Transformers movie. But over the years, I eventually learned that a lot of Linkin Park fans are only fans of their first 2 albums instead of their whole catalog, because they believe that they sold out. I compare it to Transformers in a sense, because in a way, Transformers has had the same kind of thing, where they had the really good show, slash the first album. They had a really good follow-up show, Beast Wars, compared to like Meteora, and then suddenly from 2000 to now, we've struggled with it. You know, it's just Transformers just isn't the same because of this need that so many fans have to have their favorite characters from their childhood. Like,
it's a massive love boner, and I hate to get vulgar with it, but it's a massive love boner for the classic designs, the classic.
This isn't to say the classic designs aren't cool. Like, one of the toys I have on my desk right now is a modern interpretation of the G1 Optimus Prime, but made in the style of the Bumblebee movie. And it's one of my favorite figures because it looks so cool. And it's a perfect representation of the G1 coming to a live-action film-ish. But But again, I grew up looking at Optimus Prime as this mismatch of truck parts that turns into a Peterbilt truck with flames on his arms and on his grill, which I'm sure Taze can relate to because me and Tristan, you said you grew up watching the Transformer films, so I imagine your first idea of who Optimus Prime isn't the Generation 1 version, it's the version of him that appeared in the first Transformers film. Am I wrong saying that? Taze?
I think you forgot about what you're saying. Taze, you there, buddy?
Tristan. I think he
Well,
left. In any case, the Transformers franchise has had a lot of ups and downs. They recently released a brand new show called Earthspark, which kind of introduces some of that G1 flavoring with some brand new characters and some new storylines that I find very interesting. And I'm looking forward to seeing where the show goes. But Transformers has had some ups and downs, and I'm kind of curious to find out what happens next with it. And I'm surprised at how big the franchise has gotten over the years. But here's 40 years in Transformers. I think next year would be the 40th anniversary of the Transformers toys being released, but 2024 will be the 40th anniversary of G1 premiering in the United States. So,
yeah. Now, I hate to say it, but I'm going to go ahead and move on from Transformers. That way we can continue with talking about the toys and stuff. So, the next thing that I want to talk about is the Batman the Animated Series toys and everything. So, basically, I grew up watching the show and everything, and I love.
Hey, Lan, real quick. I will be right back. How about you entertain my audience? I gotta go take real quick.
Okay, I'll just continue talking then.
Right.
So basically, I loved seeing all the different toys that everything had come out with. You had like these different designs for Batman with all these like you had like the Arctic Batman or like the Heat Batman who would basically just be there to go and like keep him warm or whatever. And all the gimmicks that came with all the figures back then was a glorious thing to majority of the kids because you wouldn't just have just the one Batman who had just one thing who would just go and just have one gimmick over and over and over again. They had to go and create different designs and have either the same mold or create a slightly different variation of the mold. That way they can do different things. And, you know, I used to want to go and, you know, beg my own father to go and get me all these different Batman toys. And I enjoyed the show, but I didn't have a massive, huge connection with the toys. So another thing that I'm going to move from, and hopefully when they get back, they'll catch on, but I'm going to move from the Batman toys to the Spider-Man toys back in the 90s when the Spider-Man TV show went on. That show had a huge heftiness that came with dealing with the figures having more to do with the show rather than with the show going and bringing different things to the toys. So the very first episode of Spider-Man the Animated Series, you had the Hobgoblin appear as the main villain for that show, which had thrown everyone off because they were expecting, hey, maybe it was going to be the Green Goblin to be the first villain of the show. People loved the comics and everything at that time, so it threw a lot of people off when they saw that instead of it being the Green Goblin right away, it was the Hobgoblin. But that's only because the Hobgoblin was the first toy of the villains that had gone and been created, and they wanted to go and implement Green Goblin, but the fact that Hobgoblin was the first toy that was created and we didn't have the Green Goblin right away, they had to go and switch up to the first villain being the Hobgoblin. So you had Peter Parker, Spider-Man, who in that show had already been Spider-Man for quite some time. He was already out of high school, already on to being in college and living with his Aunt May. You didn't have to go and see the death of Uncle Ben. It was basically pointed out a couple times in the show, but it wasn't fully explored like most of the movies and, you know, redoing retellings of the stories in the comics. So with that show starting out, you had Peter off doing his own thing, being in college, being Spider-Man, and the connectivity between the toys at the time and the TV show and the comics that aired, or the comics that were released at the same time, you had to sit there and wait and wonder, hey, when is this villain going to be coming in? When is this villain going to be coming in? Because of the fact that at the time, slowly the toys were coming out and you'd have different villains popping in, different gimmicks for Spider-Man, and, you know, you'd have a couple different people here and there that, you know, weren't part of the actual lore from the comics that were coming into the show. You had no one was expecting Spider-Man to be a massive hit because of the fact that, you know, he was popping up after just a small guest appearance on a show that came out before it, which was the X-Men that came out in the 90s. Or I think it was late 80s. It was late 80s, early 90s type deal, exactly like how Spider-Man
It was 90s.
Yeah. But you had Spider-Man come in just off screen. You see his hand shoot a web to go and help out in one episode of the X-Men. And then that was that. You didn't know that Spider-Man was going to appear in that episode. It just happened to coincide that they were like, hey, we're going to throw a little nod over to Spider-Man. You sit there, you see the hand, you hear the web shooter for the first time go off. And then that was that in that episode. And then they're like, okay, well, hopefully we'll go and get this ball rolling and get all these other characters in. But if it wasn't for people getting excited just because of that one scene, people wouldn't have been excited for the Spider-Man show, and they wouldn't have got the toys, and they wouldn't have gotten, you know, different things for that. And for me, growing up and watching Spider-Man in that cartoon, I was blown away. Sure, I was like ridiculously young, so I didn't sit there and think about a lot of the stuff that was going on because, you know, it was a cartoon. I was just enjoying what was being, you know, put on the screen. I was watching people go and die, and by die I mean like get their ass handed to them by Spider-Man, who could not go and throw a single punch. It was always he'd go and grab someone and push them, or he'd grab them with their webs. There was not allowed to be a lot of punching, not allowed to be a lot of kicking, because at that time the TV show code was like, hey, we don't want violence in the show. Sure, they got away with about 2 punches in the show, but throughout the entire thing, you had just, you know, the gimmicks from the toys trying to slowly make their way into the show because of that. Sorry,
I got a question.
I switched from Batman to Spider-Man.
That was my question I was going to ask. How did we go from Batman the Animated Series toys to Spider-Man the Animated Series?
Because, and I explained it earlier while you were away, basically, I loved the TV show, but I didn't get too heavy into the toys at the time. But Spider-Man was the main one that I got heavily into the toys and wanted to have a whole bunch of collection of different Spider-Man figures. I remember I had this, I think it was like Aqua Spider-Man or something. He came with like this visor, and he had like this big old backpack on his back that you can put water into, and he would blast water from this whatever the heck it was. It's been years since I had it. There was this one that was like a rope swinging Spider-Man or something like that, and basically it came with like this little magnet that was attached to this rope, and you can attach it to like a fridge and swing them around and whatnot. And I was just going into how the toys from for Spider-Man, the animated series, was more of what had gone and had more influence in the show than Batman, because of the fact, like, instead of going and getting Green Goblin right away at the beginning of the series, we had Hobgoblin, because Hobgoblin was the first villain of the series that was ever released and issued out for people to go and buy and collect. And at the time, people didn't go and sit there and be like, "Oh, I got a Green Goblin toy." Most people were expecting Green Goblin, as I was stating, but instead we got Hobgoblin instead. So that's mainly why I was going on and talking about that.
James, have you come back yet?
Yes, I'm here.
Save us from the Spider-Man talk. We did Heroes last week.
I'm sorry, I was getting onto that. But,
I know, I'm messing with you.
There's another thing that I wanted to get onto, if you guys don't mind, talking about like the Power Rangers toys and whatnot that came out.
I was gonna say, let's talk about Power Rangers, because that's also another series where toys have become a major staple of how that show has progressed. Because I mean, if you look at the show should not be continuing to air at this point, if you ask me. But it's still a thing.
So the toys, after it was gone and brought on by another huge conglomerate known as
Bandai?
Saban. No, Saban.
Oh, Saban.
Saban had gone and acquired the rights from I think it was TV Asahi, who does this show called Super Sentai. They brought over stuff from there, which to them was their superhero show, where people go and they use a certain gimmick and they get this suit that was obviously made of spandex and, you know, laid over gloves and boots and big old helmet, whatever. For them, that was their action. That's how kids used to go and enjoy stuff like that. But with Saban going and bringing that over to America, they had to go and bring over some of the gimmick toys that was done for the Super Sentai series. And so we had, for us, instead of starting out with, I think what the show was called was Super Sentai Go Ranger, which was like the very, very first Super Sentai series that was like labeled as Super Sentai. I don't remember. It's been a while since I talked about it. But they had brought over the show. I believe it was called. It was either Kyoryu Sentai. No. It was Juden Sentai Kyoryu. No. I'm sorry. I'm getting off it. It's Kyoryu Sentai Zoo Ranger, which is a dinosaur squad. I don't remember what the Zhu stands for, but it's Zhu Ranger, and basically it was these people who were skilled in martial arts themselves, and it was like kind of like bringing some kind of characters that looked like they were from ancient Japan, but they weren't, to like the modern day area. And so they had these things called the Dino Buckler, which here in America is called just a morpher. And so basically, you know, they pull that out, they transform, and then they have their little fights. And so with the fact that Super Sentai was immensely popular in Japan, they had to go and bring some of that. Saban decided to go and bring some of that back to America to go and give us the toys and the little gimmicks that they had. And of course, they had to go and model some new toys to give us figures that were kind of based off of the Power Rangers that we know. So they had to change the name, they changed some of the looks to some of the figures, and brought
They've changed
certain
him so
things
much,
here and
now you
there.
can get your own face as like a Power Ranger.
Exactly. That's a current thing right now. Is it's changed so much that if you want, you can go onto Hasbro's website, upload a picture to your to this thing that allows them to go and just take that picture, take that scan, and throw it onto a figure, and you basically have your own figure of yourself as a Power Ranger. Which one I thought is cool, but I'm not going to go and do myself.
It's called the Selfie Series, and it's really cool.
But basically,
unfortunately, you can't do the same thing with Transformers, and that kind of sucks. But you know what?
It's fine though.
If they end up doing it with like Pretenders, I'll be okay with that.
But trying to shorten this as much as possible, they brought over as many things as they can from Japan to go and give us what is known as Power Rangers, and give us things like, I remember the first ever Morphers that came out years ago. The coins didn't look like the coins from the show. They had the same, design of like the dinosaurs on them, but they had coins that were specifically colored for the same Ranger. That was like a reissue that came out like years into the making of it. But like the very first ever coins were like cheap little plastic things, and it made the noise and whatnot. And I remember, and this took a while because I had to go and talk about it with old relatives of mine. But we used to have the old Morpher, we used to have the old Dragon Dagger, we used to have the really, really old Saba, which, it made noise and whatnot, and you could swing it around.
James, are you bored yet?
No.
Okay, just making sure.
And basically, we just, came up with our own stories as we were the Power Rangers themselves, And that is that for our rant, because you guys are obviously getting bored, even though you say you're not.
The whole reason why I even brought Power Rangers into this is because I wanted to give you an outlet, because I know Power Rangers, you're more of a fan of the Power Rangers franchise than you are of the Transformers franchise. You're just a fan of, like, giant robots from Japan.
I'm a fan of a lot of mecha stuff, yes.
Speaking of mecha, should we talk about Gundam? Seeing as how Gundam is considered to be one of the biggest model toy manufacturers, or model toy.
I don't know, Taze, are you into that?
No.
Well, let's do something that Taze is into.
Okay.
I'd love to transition to, two things, if I may suggest both in order. The first one being about Ninja Turtles, and then the second,
which we did say we were going to get into. And
then the second one is one that all three of us are sleeping on, which is G.I. Joe. So,
so is Hasbro. The only reason why I'm sleeping on G.I. Joe is because that last movie sucked.
What do you mean?
I think he's talking about the old movie, not the recent one that came out.
No, Snake Eyes was terrible.
Are you talking about G.I. Joe Retaliation?
Okay, well, no, yes, that was a bad movie, but I am talking about Snake Eyes because
I don't want to hear this slander.
I knew it. I knew he hated. I knew it.
Ouch,
okay, so I do have to say I have yet to go and see Snake Eyes.
I've never seen it.
I personally I personally don't hate what they did with G.I. Joe. I do like how some of the things were changed and upgraded for it. Another thing that I enjoyed was the show G.I. Joe Sigma 6. That was a good show when I was watching it. I mean, sure, I was like older, but you know, it was a new version of G.I. Joe. The characters were almost based off of the ones that came out of the movies with the designs, especially Snake Eyes and
Look, I will go ahead and say that
Shadow
G.I.
Fox.
Joe: The Rise of Cobra was a good movie in my opinion.
Yeah,
But I did not like this new Snake Eyes film. It just didn't speak to me. It wasn't a good movie to me. That's not to say that I'm discounting anything that you guys have to say about it. I'm just saying I wasn't a fan of that film. The action scenes were, yes, they were good. The story was, to me, it just felt like a cash grab. Like, the only reason why they made it was so they can continue to hold the film rights to, like, certain G.I. Joe characters.
Absolutely.
Because, I mean,
it's been years since I had. Sorry, but it's been years since I had a lot of stuff come out for G.I. Joe, which is why they had to go about and create a movie or two or three.
What's kind of like, okay. What's funny to me is that the reason why Channing Tatum was only in Retaliation for like all of 5 minutes was because they couldn't afford to keep him on. And instead, they decided to keep The Rock on, who is a much more expensive actor.
Oh, yeah.
So, I'm just saying, it's like, G.I. Joe, the first 2 G.I. Joe movies, I enjoyed them because they were entertaining. I'm sure that if I gave the Snake Eyes movie another chance, I'll find it entertaining as well. I'm personally not a big fan of the G.I. Joe G.I. Joe line at all. I don't know why, because it just seems like it'd be right up my alley, but I just don't know.
See, I do have to point this out. I did have a couple of G.I. Joe figures here and there, but they were like the old school, like the big figure and whatnot, and you can put the clothes on, take the clothes off, change how they looks. But I wasn't like a massive G.I. Joe fan. I didn't get too heavily into it. I did watch the show, the reruns, and then I did go and watch as I said, G.I. Joe Sigma 6, but it wasn't.
I remember Sigma 6.
Collecting toys.
The only real emotional connection I have with G.I. Joe is the fact that, my dad used to own like a whole bunch of like classic G.I. Joe, and some of the old Kenner Star Wars figures. He had like that classic Millennium Falcon from like the late 70s, early 80s, and all those toys, and he let me have some of them. It was, he let me have some of them, and I remember being a kid playing around with those little baby figures, and like I had like the Tomahawk jet or whatever, the F-16 jet, and playing around with that. I remember it being a lot of fun with those toys. I just don't have any real emotional connection to the characters. I know that they have a very extensive history crossing over with the Transformers franchise, especially in the IDW comics, but I just don't have a true connection to the G.I. Joe franchise as a whole. Primarily because, that's not to say that I won't watch another G.I. Joe movie when it comes out, but I want them to do it in a way that shows that they care for the franchise. Because if you look at, if we get another G.I. Joe movie, I want it to be more or less like the original cartoon, where you had Cobra Commander, who was actually psychotic evil, but fun. Like, even if you just get a dude with a face mask and have like Frank Welker come in and voice him again, or if you have like Steve Bloom come in and voice him again, that would be cool. But I don't. I'll give the first movie this. G.I. Joe: Rise of Cobra was really good because they make a really good person to play Cobra Commander. They pick a really good person to play Destro. A lot of the people in the film were actually very entertaining to watch. It was an action film, but it just didn't scream like G.I. Joe to me. It was like
G.I. Joe. That's the thing. It's like a lot. I think this is one of the problems with a lot of people who grew up reading comic books or getting into toys and all this and this is that you're like, oh, this has to be comic book accurate, or I'm not going to watch it. Or this has to be, animated canon, or I'm not going to watch it, right? And like
that's the whole reason why people are like, this is basically goes back to the whole G1 thing, is because of people wanting stuff like that. They want it to be like what they remember, which is why most people hate that.
Yeah, like that's one of the reasons why I don't like a lot of Marvel right now, is because they're like, like with Miss Marvel,
superhero for last week.
What's that?
Go ahead, sorry.
But yeah, no. We understand.
With like a lot of things these days, whether it's Marvel or whatever, it's like there's sort of this like panderance of, oh, everything has to be canon to this, or this is canon, this isn't canon. Oh, this is shit because you didn't do this. Like, and I'll be fair. There are times where I'm like, you should have kept it like this, or you should have kept it like that, especially again with Marvel or so forth. But like ultimately, I think that is one of the, like when you go into watching G.I. Joe movies, like Rise of Cobra or Retaliation, I've told people, I'm like, you cannot look at this like a comic book adaptation. You have to look at this like it is a reimagining. You have to look at it like it is its own take on G.I. Joe. If you
Well, see, that's the thing I find hard to do. Like with G.I. Joe, you have to have a more sense of reality because it was a more grounded grounded franchise when it was first released, as opposed to like Transformers franchise where it's like you have giant robots that turn into cars. You can pretty much do whatever the hell you want.
Like what the live action movies did, in my opinion, is they took a Mission Impossible feel to G.I. Joe, which is a great thing to do, right? Like I loved Channing Tatum in both of the movies, right? Even though he was in there for only a short amount of time on the second one, I thought that his character in Rise of Cobra was great. I thought the sets that they built were great. I thought the character developments were great. I thought having Joseph Gordon-Levitt play Cobra Commander was absolutely like.
And that's one of the things I absolutely loved about the first
one
movie.
Of the things brought up is where you said like Cobra Commander needs to be sadistic. I'm like, there's nothing more sadistic than literally injecting your own sister who thinks you're dead with nanobots. Like that is.
Well, I didn't say sadistic. I want him to be insane like he was in the original cartoon. Because if you remember, he was like, he was essentially Skeletor to.
Yes, I understand. However, you can't really have that with a PG-13 movie. Like
you could. I mean, if you make it campy.
Marvel won't drop an F-bomb in a movie because they're afraid of going into our territory. Okay, so like you can't do Skeletor shit and then be like, oh, we want to be kid friendly. Like
again, the movies aren't here so we can criticize them. You're here to provide entertainment and they're a form of art.
Tell
a story.
Completely different from what could be, what people have already seen. That's the whole thing.
Which is why I love watching movies or watching TV shows. I'm not there because I want to
Yeah.
sit there and criticize everything I see. I'm there because I want to be entertained. I spent money to be entertained,
No,
and
honestly,
Taze, shut the hell up. Let me
All right, hold on.
finish.
I'll be right back.
I want if I'm gonna go see a GI Joe movie, I find that uh, it's harder to differentiate a GI Joe film from a typical futuristic war movie. Because to an
yeah.
extent, you can it's just I think that Hollywood needs to stop being serious about their movies.
Hmm.
I miss like the early 2000s style like superhero movies where the films were campy and the characters were larger than life. Like look at Willem Dafoe in Spider-Man 1.
Yeah.
He was crazy and sadistic, but you could laugh at him. I want villains similar. I want a Joker that's more like Mark Hamill's Joker in the Batman the Animated Series because you could laugh at him. He was funny, but you also knew he was a bad guy. You couldn't wait to see Batman kick his ass. I want those types of shows because GI Joe is supposed to be this group of multinational
All American
military
heroes.
these all American heroes. They're supposed to be this symbol of unity. Like their job is to protect us. But all the movies in all the movies are basically they dive deep into the idea that GI Joe is this secret section of the American government
Yeah.
where it's like that doesn't make sense to me. Like I understand it's realistic because I mean if you want to ground in reality, yes. But the thing is that G.I. Joe is supposed to be larger than life. You have characters with jetpacks. You have literally ninjas who are kicking each other's ass with katanas, while you have other dudes shooting like a Baroness or a dude who has a literal metal face, like Destro and the Baroness. It,
You also
it's
have a fucking dude that's dressed as a snake for no fucking reason.
exactly. No, I understand the idea of bringing it into reality, but GI Joe is so much more. The reason why the Transformers films are successful uh, is because you're immediately going in with a suspension of disbelief because you know that Transformers do not exist. When
Well,
you look at GI Joe,
I go into a Transformers film because I'm like, all right, what the fuck are they gonna pull this time? Right? I'm like, I'm like, okay, the first one, Transformers, the Spark, all this crazy graphics. The second one, Revenge of the
the first
Fallen.
one was so good because it did extend your suspension of disbelief in a way.
No,
Because
not no, not really. I was more just bewildered by like a lot of the visual effects, a lot of the cinematography.
exactly,
The way that they promoted it by doing like ARGs, rolling trucks out in real life to fucking like do all sorts of shit. Um, One thing that I was looking at, because this is something I've been begging for, just like personally for a very long time, is a GI Joe series, like live action. Apparently, last year they announced that a live action GI Joe series focusing on Lady Jane is being worked on.
and that doesn't surprise me in the least bit because it was probably a spin-off type thing from Snake Eyes.
No,
Look,
well,
all I'm trying to say here, guys, is that the GI Joe movies are military movies. They are essentially military recruitment videos, full with cool special effects and a couple of really cool like futuristic gadgetry. That otherwise it's your typical military movie. Like you have
okay.
to
Or the
Like you have a group. But what I want, and I think G.I. Joe would very much benefit from, is removing this veil of seriousness, being a little bit more campy with the franchise, allowing them to be able to do whatever the hell they wanted. Because I want to go back to the roots where G.I. Joe is, hey, look, there's Duke. Can I get your autograph? Like, you're supposed to be American heroes. They're all supposed to be like Captain America levels of fame. Like they're out there fighting a war and actually being heroes and saving lives.
Is not knowing that GI Joe exists. So,
What?
Like, one of the whole things about being in the GI Joes is essentially knows you exist. It's like, so that whole like campy like, oh, you're Duke, can I have your autograph? You know, this and that. Like, I assume you're talking about like a person in real life, like coming up to an actor or something. But
well, that's the thing. Back in the 80s, when the original G.I. Joe cartoon was a thing, they would do like these little mini infomercials where they animated characters from like G.I. Joe, going around saving lives and stuff. That's the kind of thing I want. I don't want a military movie where it's like, oh, Cobra's trying to take over America by putting an imposter president in and having him kill off all the Joes. Take over the world, you know? And it's like, I want a goofy villain. I want G.I. Joe almost in the style of Austin Powers.
You can't have that though.
Why can't I?
Because like that, I think that would do a lot more damage to like the overall like lore and respect cinema wise and franchise wise that G.I. Joe has had, where it's like these characters are badass, these characters take no shit, these characters put everything on the line.
But that's the thing.
You can't have like an Austin Powers.
You can do that.
Probably
you can do that. You can.
I'm gonna say something just for the pure kicks of it. You probably could do something like that, but the only place you could do it on is the CW, and it would never fucking happen. That's about it. Like, you know, because the CW was campy. It was the home of campy shit. But like, you know, or a film festival if no one intended to see the light of day. But like that, you know, that's.
I do have to point this out real quick, though. The last time that we had campy was the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man.
Exactly.
That was good for what it was. But
you took
the one before that, I do have to point this out. The one before that, when it came to camp, was the Joel Schumacher Batman, if you guys remember.
Yep.
Which is why a lot of people mostly don't do campy anymore, because of the fact that
if you can do it right, okay? Like Sam Raimi. Well, okay, so here's the thing: Sam Raimi's Spider-Man films, they were good because they presented Spider-Man as a believable hero, like he was in the comics. They had a campy and goofiness around it. And the villain, and the main villain, like if we go look at Green Goblin again, Willem Dafoe, he had that aura of him where it's like you could laugh at what he was doing because he was trying to be funny, but you also had that sadistic quality to him. What I want is a movie where you have Cobra Commander acting like Mark Hamill's Joker. Because
no, you just can't. I'm sorry.
No one can bring Mark Hamill's.
Not only
gravitas.
Just that style. I'm sure there is someone out there who could do it. Look, here's the best thing. Here's the best thing about Cobra Commander. Shut up for a second. Here's the best thing about Cobra Commander. If you do a version of Cobra Commander where he is literally he has that mirror faceplate helmet mask thing. You can have anyone you want behind that mask. It's similar to how they get Darth Vader. How you knew that James Earl Jones was the voice of Vader, but he was portrayed by I think 3 or 4 different actors who never saw the light of day until the final film, until Return of the Jedi, where Luke pulls the mask off and he's completely different. You can have that where you can do, hell, you can even get Mark Hamill come in and do the Cobra Commander and have someone like I don't know Daniel Cudmore underneath the suit and everything, being this fun campy guy. Hell, you can have Bruce Campbell in that suit or whatever. I don't know. It doesn't matter who's in the suit. As long as
I don't
Frank Welker.
think it's much about who's in the suit, but if they can do the character justice and do it right, that's the problem, right? Because again, you're talking about a franchise that is centered around military, action, drama, the stakes are on the line times 100. And if you put somebody in that suit who is, let's say, a comedy actor or somebody that's more of a documentary actor rather than a actor like a Gordon Levitt, a Dwayne Johnson, whoever may be from that side of the entertainment space, you risk not only doing damage to the character, but also doing damage to the franchise as a whole, right? And not only that, but also at the same time, right, you also have to take into account what the tone and the feel of an individual film can do to an entire franchise. One film, as we've seen with like Transformers, for instance, because I still believe Transformers, the Dark Knight or Age
The
of
Last Knight.
Extinction. No, Age of Extinction is the one I'm thinking of. I thought it was a great movie overall, but Mark Wahlberg fucking destroyed it because he's not the right character for it.
He was perfectly fine in that movie.
No.
Yes, he was.
Somebody way better.
Well, this is you.
Okay.
You have very high standards, Days. You have very high. Yes, you do.
Mediocre quality.
That wasn't mediocre quality. Mark Wahlberg has done has been in amazing films. Yes, he was in Tag. Yes, he was in Boogie Nights. Yeah.
But the last
yes, he was also in The Happening.
The last Transformers films he was in both fucking tanked.
They tanked because the movies were terrible.
Because
The Last Night, Transformers. Okay, shut up. Transformers: The Last Night was like 4 or 5 different movies in one because Hasbro did not give 2 shits about how the film came out. They just wanted the movie to come out. They didn't care about the story. They just wanted to have the characters so they can sell toys. That's why The Last Night tanked. It wasn't because of Mark Wahlberg, because Mark Wahlberg did a damn good job being a father in that role. You can say all you like about how creepy he was as a father. You can say how creepy. You can say it.
Third person in the role. I'm just saying that, like,
if you want to blame anyone for the failure of those movies, blame Hasbro. Or hell, blame Michael Bay, because Michael Bay should not have come back for Age of Extinction. He wasn't going to come back, but he decided to because he didn't think of anyone else who could do it. Same thing for Transformers: The Last Night. Because Michael Bay decided to come back, Hasbro stopped looking for another director. I would argue that Travis Knight has done a much better job with the Transformers franchise in one film than Michael Bay did with 5.
I mean, when you're a well-established director like Michael Bay, you're going to have.
Travis Knight was also well-established in making a film that was supposed to be relatable to kids as well as adults.
Okay.
Take Kubo and the Two Strings. He did that one.
Okay.
That's the one movie I can think of that he was part of.
Getting back to G.I. Joe, though. Okay.
Oh my god.
I do think that
Lan, save me.
okay, look,
Nope.
they very much could do
Fuck you.
a different take on Cobra Commander, on G.I. Joe. They absolutely could. Okay. I'm not saying that they can't. I'm just saying.
Okay, Taze, let me ask you this. If you had the ideal G.I. Joe movie, what would you do? Would you do it more like Black Hawk Down? Or would you do it more like Team America? Or whatever?
Black Hawk Down.
You want a serious military style movie.
Yes.
You have 50 million of those.
However, the G.I. Joe franchise.
The G.I. Joe. Okay, from what I'm hearing,
shut up.
you want.
Shut up. Let me.
My show. You've interrupted me multiple times. Let me finish what I gotta say, and then I will let you talk. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Here's the thing. From what I'm hearing is that you want a G.I. Joe movie that has the characters in the lore, which, granted, that's what everyone would want, but with all the seriousness of Saving Private Ryan, or Black Hawk Down, or 13 Hours, or
Yes.
Lone Survivor.
Yes. I loved 13 Hours. I love that movie. Right? Especially, okay. Yes. I would love it if they had a Black Hawk or a Black Hawk Down or a 13 Hours feel to G.I. Joe. Because that, like, if you, like, let's compare it to Marvel, okay? Marvel does Captain America, First Avenger, right? Amazing. Captain America, the Winter Soldier, goes even more above, right? With the action, the drama, the intensity, the amount of sheer violence that they had in that movie alone, right? Then you get to, some of the other projects that they've done in the Captain America franchise, right? Or, just some of the other ones in general, right? And that intensity that you have to scale and really, like, put, again, all the stakes on the line, or, really have this deep grit feel to it, like a military style movie. Yes. I feel like that is what G.I. Joe has been, what they were going towards, but also they just needed a little bit of time, because the thing is you have to really develop these characters, right? The same with, for instance, like Iron Man. A lot of, I think it's fair to say that yes, Iron Man, was a top tier character in the Marvel, catalog. The same with a lot of the G.I. Joe characters from the first and the second movie. You still have to build these characters up one after two, after three movies at a time, right? The same way that you see with Mission Impossible movies. No one was gonna like Tom Cruise's Ethan Hunt just automatically. You have to work and develop the character over multiple films and really hone it and do everything right. I feel like that's what a lot of people are missing is, you
But
strive.
that's the thing. That's the thing. When you have a military style film like the one you're describing, then that means that when you're gonna Game of Thrones, a lot of those characters where granted, I know in the original G.I. Joe animated movie that they released in the 80s, they killed Duke off. And they did so in retaliation. That's the thing that retaliation did wrong, was that they killed Duke off
Yes.
after one movie where you're building him up as like this main character, this awesome badass hero, and then you kill him off 5 minutes until the second movie, just so Dwayne Johnson can get paid an extra $100,000.
Well, I think it was also that Channing Tatum wanted to go things because he was
His own thing being Magic Mike.
Yeah, but he also went on to do the Jump Street movies. And
those actually happened? I completely forgot those things actually existed.
21 and 22 Jump Street happened, and I love those movies. I thought they were great. But
I'm not gonna say anything just because, I mean, I thought those movies were stupid as hell, but they were funny. They had their moments, so I'm not gonna say much else besides that. Because I don't
Okay.
want to get into another argument about that. But,
no, that's a
I
fair,
hate to
that's-
interrupt everything, but you know, we've switched from talking about
yeah.
toys and their effects on
Yeah.
that. We
I
need to
know,
get
but
back
this
to
is also I guess it's also an interesting topic because again, if you want to talk about a toy product that has more influence over current entertainment media, there's no better toy than looking at
Star Wars.
G.I. Joe.
Star
No.
Wars has been dead for years, my guy.
I don't know. It's still going.
No,
even if it's hot garbage. When it comes to certain toys, they're coming out with somewhat
Here's
newer
the thing.
ones
Here's
based
the
off
thing.
the newer stuff. I'm not talking about the sequel trilogy. I'm talking about like the shows.
Yeah.
Which
well,
have
yeah,
been really good. Are we
shows
actually gonna get into a discussion about whether or not The Mandalorian was a good show
It was.
with you, Taze?
It was a
It
good
was a good show.
Okay. I just don't want to get into a discussion of, wow, The Mandalorian is so good, but again, Taze be like, no, it wasn't. That show was awful.
No, I thought The
No.
Mandalorian was amazing. I didn't watch much of it because, but from what I
The
did
show was
watch,
amazing. I didn't watch it, but yeah, it was cool.
no, I watched some of it, but like it like the last show that I really got into that had multiple seasons was Cloak and Dagger.
I only had 2 seasons, and I heard that show tanked hard.
It
Not
was
as hard as the Eternals
it was on
or
Freeform,
whatever
my
it
guy.
was.
Inhumans.
Almost anything
Inhumans,
tanks on
yes.
Freeform over the last like 6 years. Okay. Regardless, though, even then, like before that, Agents of Shield was the only thing I watched. Well, the only other thing, it wasn't really like superhero or comic based, was the spinoff of the Vampire Diary shows, which had 4 and 5 seasons. In both the spinoffs had 4 and 5 seasons, so you know, like, I do want to transition though to the other thing I brought up, which was Ninja Turtles and the universe.
I will say that we've been going
We
for
keep
about an hour and a half. I think what I'm gonna do is
There's no better
what I
time
think I'm gonna do is you. Here's what we're gonna do. We're going to put a pin in the discussion because we've been going for 2 hours. I don't want to do very long because that's just gonna make it even harder to edit in the future when we're done recording. And I don't want to do that. What we can do is say we'll come back and say next Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we'll continue this discussion because I mean I think table of content is evolving into a completely different podcast at this point from what I had initially intended it to. But I also think that there's a lot of good topics that we have that we can discuss in regards to like Ninja Turtle stuff. And I'm sorry that we don't have enough time to get to that tonight. But my my mother probably would like me to shut up now. So we're supposed to have company here a little bit, so I probably have to go anyway. But anyways, next week we'll probably come back. I think we'll do it live again next week. Hopefully it won't be as scuffed as your stream was. Actually, your stream was a lot less scuffed than normal, but I digress. So I would like to express a thank you to my guests at this time, Mr. TaZeTheGod and Mr. Lan626. Whoever wants to say thank you, or whoever wants to say their last words first, go right ahead.
Well,
Yeah, I'll go ahead and.
All right, go ahead first.
All right, I do apologize, but yeah, thank you for joining us. I'll probably be streaming tomorrow, maybe the end of late night as I usually do. Probably do
What are you
some
gonna
more
be streaming?
Ghostbusters. Either do some more
There
Ghostbusters
we go. That's something that
or,
we can bring in until next week.
oh yeah, and maybe a little bit
Oh
of
wait,
Master
shit.
Duel.
Maybe not next week because of the tournament. We may have to. We may have to do the episode on Monday next week because of
Which
the.
is totally fine. Which is why I said what I said. But anyways, I'll catch you guys on the next stream.
Yeah.
Taze, did you want to say a couple things?
Yeah, my bad. Yeah, thank you to everyone who's been.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Sorry about that. My controller decided to die.
Oh,
I'm talking through Discord, through my headset, through my TV, and recording it on my laptop because my laptop's headphone jack is very stuck at the moment. So I apologize for that. I want to say that hopefully tomorrow, if you guys are okay with it, I would like to do part 2. We can record part 2 tomorrow.
sure.
I'd be okay with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm good with that. And now I get to lecture Callan on what's happening in the crypto space because he asked.
Oh, goody.
It's a fucking nightmare, my guy.
I don't even want to figure out what the heck's going on.
FTX collapsed, and in the process of them collapsing, like just so much shit, my guy. Like, all the degeneracy you could think of.
One more time. One more time. My controller died again.
I was just basically trying to explain to Lance that like all the degeneracy that you could think of has basically happened with FTX, which is what I'll explain to you, Callan, in a few minutes or so.
Yeah, we'll talk about it after stream's over. But yeah, so thank you guys for watching this episode of, or actually listening to this episode of Callan Cable Content. I have reached out to a couple more creators, so hopefully, but before the end of the year, I can get a couple more creators on the show to do interviews with them, similar to how I did it with Pick on PC and Parquet a couple of weeks back. I want to express a great big thank you towards my friends here and fellow content creators, TaZeTheGod and Lan626, for coming on the show to argue with me over semantics of G.I. Joe, Transformers, and other toys and games that we grew up with. So I want to say thank you. You guys can check them out. You can follow them on Twitter using the usernames that I am posting on screen right now. You can follow me on Twitter at CALLON'S, which is on screen. You can follow me at Callan. You can follow the show at Callan TOC on Twitter. So whenever we have a new episode, you can go there, turn on notifications, and we'll let you know whenever that's happening. You can follow the production group, NIGHT.WAV Productions, or at NIGHT.WAV Podcast. You can also follow Taze's entertainment media site, Replay, at PRSS Replay. That's Press Replay, down at the bottom. And you can follow both my friend Lan and my friend Taze on screen at nerd_Tony for Lan and at TaZeTheGod for, well, Taze. So again, I would like to say thank you to my guests, thank you to everyone who's watching, and come back next week as we open the next chapter on the table of content. Thank you, guys.
Yay!
We.